Welcome to the Three Beards podcast, everybody, and people in the chat. M.A. Allen, Radio sponsor man is in there, along with King. And King, you are correct. It's time for the Beard Show. All right, we're brought to you by Radio. Go to mixler.com, set up your account there. It's going to take you maybe about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. Then you're going to go clicky, and you're going to follow Radio. And then you're going to be able to listen to us again, because you can never get enough beards in your life. And then you're going to listen to Into the Outer Realms, because once again, your Beards Truly is on that occasionally. And then Enter the Dimension with Maureen. That's one I'm not on, but we're going to see about maybe getting her on the show. So, all right. We're talking Mandela Effect. All right. Some people believe in it. Some people don't believe in it. Is it a cosmic, is it a cosmic interaction where dimensions, universes have collided and we have these things, or is it simply the power of suggestion? I mean, we've all done it. The monocle on the Monopoly guy. I'm one of the ones. I distinctly remember the cornucopia with the Fruit of the Loom logo, even though it's never existed. You look at all their history, it's never had a cornucopia, ever. It's always just been the fruit. Like I said, it's never had that thing, but I remember that cornucopia one. But did I remember it from something else? From all the Thanksgiving ads, and it's just, and I've always just, in my mind, it's the same way. It's like the Monopoly guy. Are we thinking the Planter's Peanut guy? Because he's always had a monocle. And then you got the Monopoly guy. Are we mixing those things? And so that's one of the things, Mandela Effect. Is this a product of our own minds? Or did one of the large colliders open up a tear in the fabric of the universe in which some of us believed that the man Mandela was dead, and to realize that he was not, and thereby being called the Mandela Effect. So with us tonight is Tillie Treadwell. She is going to be, she's from the show Weird Walk Home. You can find that on YouTube. You can follow that channel. You can also find her on Facebook. So they talk about these books, and she is working with, I want to say it's Tim. I want to say Tim Schwartz is who she's working on with that. I went back in the access to those memory banks there. So she's working on a book along with us on this topic. So we're going to have her with it. So everybody sit back, relax. We have got the wheel, but unlike Jesus, keep your eyes on the road. Okay. Don't do that. We don't want to be responsible for that. All right. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right.
Justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, and we're back. And so Mark has joined us to step in. Brian's on the road and recovering from surgery, so not quite sure if he's going to be able to make it on or not. If he is, that's a bonus. And Chris is at basketball practice with his son, so he's going to be out for a little while. So till that comes in, it's going to be me holding the wheel. And like I mentioned that here, and I want to show a picture because I think everybody will kind of get a kick out of this. Here's a picture of Jesus next to all the wheels that he's taken. So there you go. So just remember, when you ask him to take the wheel, you may not get it back. All right. Anyway, enough of this tomfoolery. All right. So Mark, how are you, sir?
Oh, doing well. Looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Awesome. Appreciate coming on short notice there too. And King, yeah,
I knew
it's
about it
this
for
week. Hey, Katie,
a
how are
month.
you? Go ahead, Mark. What were we saying?
I knew about it for a month, so it's not short notice.
Well, for you being on the show, that's what I said when I reached out to you. So, yeah, M.A. Allen. I don't want the wheel back. I know but hey, remember, sometimes you kind of need that in order to get home. So yeah, let's bring on the guest of the hour for the next hour. Tillie Treadwell, how are you?
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm doing very well. I think that really the only way I could be doing any better is if I had a matching beard. But thank you, gentlemen, for having me tonight. How are you?
We've talked about this, and we got to pull this off because we've been joking around where we need to have where it's on a paint stick, and we send that out to the guests.
Yes.
So that way they actually have a beard they can put up. And so we've been talking about this, but we just never, we're just lazy.
So it's not. See, it's actually the beardless people on tonight's show are the majority. Unlike when there's the three beards. But now Tillie wants a beard, so like she's like the bearded lady from the circus, which leaves me back again as the butt of all the jokes that Mark has too much estrogen and he can't grow a beard.
Well, I keep saying he's going to end up being kind of like it would be like the Chinese, you have like the kung fu movies, and we just got to get it to where he can just grow that really long, like wispy mustache or something like that. Yeah. Palme, and just sit and do it. But it's more like what we need. It's just like it's a classic commercial where the family sitting around the table and they're all enamored with the new boyfriend, and they're all sitting there twirling their hair, and that's what we just got to get Mark to do. Just get like that braid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, when you send me my beard, I would like a ginger beard, please. I think that would go really well with my hair color.
There you go. Yeah, that was kind of why we did when we started the show. Austin, he has a big old thing, and I was just like, all right, that's why our colors. We have went with the black and orange and stuff. It's like because we had to make that the ginger. Yeah, that was his nickname, Ginger Squatch. And so he's a silent partner in the show still. So it's just like he's not in there. And Katie's like, she can't grow a beard either. I know we get a few on there. Mark is not alone. He makes it seem like he is, but he's not. He's a valuable. We've been working together for well over 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So it's been really good. So we really enjoyed that. So Mandela Effect. So I'm kind of on, really myself, I am on the part where I feel like a lot of these ones, I've got some picture to bring up here. A lot of these you could almost put it onto groupthink and power of suggestion, where a lot of these things come into play, because there's a lot of ones that's like, oh, I remember this, like the Kit Kat thing. And I think a lot of these are just ones where there's subtle ones where somebody mentions it, like the Chick-fil-A logo. You start getting these ones. I don't know. I mean, to you, is the Mandela Effect more based off of like the logos and stuff like this, or is there something more in depth where you think, no, more like this is what happened, this is what the true like Mandela Effect actually is, as opposed to, we remember a wicker basket holding fruit,
right,
on the underwear.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I have experienced many logo-based Mandela effects, and I personally have very nearly seen them take place in real time, in real life, on buildings and signs right in front of my face. So I personally think that there is something to it. However, I do think that a lot of the alleged Mandela effects that are mentioned online that have to do with like the candy wrappers, that type of thing, I do think that they are more likely to be just misremembering, or maybe even a psyop or groupthink. I'm not entirely sure. I simply think that those ones are more likely to be something other than quantum shifting. I do believe, though, that physical material shifts, and I think that this is part of the quantum design here. When I'm talking about physical material, I'm talking about things like books, signs on buildings and businesses, etc., personal items that people own, and then getting a little bit deeper, I have experienced seemingly timeline shifts with my husband and other people where these people are completely different than my current or recent past memory of them. They swear that certain things that I know for a fact happened, or that I know for a fact that they've told me about, they'll swear that it doesn't happen or that it didn't happen. And this hasn't just been something for me that's happened with one person. This has happened ever since I can remember, essentially my entire life. And same with the physical objects shifting just about in front of my face. And you had mentioned that I work with Tim Swartz, and I'm writing a book with him and with our friends over at Zontar Press. There are certain events that have occurred for me regarding material items seeming to shift so much, almost right in front of my face, that I write about these extensively in this book. So I think that there are several different causes going on, and I try to, in general, make certain groups for these happenings or effects. But at the end of the day, I personally believe that it's important to take each allegation separately and to look at someone's mental health history, any use of drugs, any kind of other paranormal allegations, and see if they have also, there could be dementia going on, there could be a lot of other factors. So it's complicated.
Well, no, I like that part. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that part because that's one of the things that's really key. And I think a lot of people miss that aspect is one, it's just, if you ignore the fact that, there are crazy people. There literally are people that are flat out nuts and stuff. And if you just, if we go believing the guy that's running around with the sign placard says the end of the world is coming, and we take that guy literally, there's a lot of problems with those things. And it's just really good, like you said, just because this logo is different. Well, if you realize that, I'm crazy, well, that's going to be a pretty good indication that probably the logo isn't different. Just cuckoo.
So my question to you, my friend, how can you objectively define what is crazy?
Yeah, see, that is one of the things that's really, I do like that, because it's one, do you go based off of a societal norm? Do you go based off of what, that's, because you have to have that basis point, it's like, what basis point are you assigning
Appearing on this show?
Yeah, just because if you go based off of my criteria, you could have a completely different criteria. And then it's one of those, what to my spectrum would be, this person's absolutely nuts. You'd be like, no, they've got some characteristics. I think most people would be, we're not going to pile on it, but what happened last Wednesday at the very end of the show, we had to throw a disclaimer. That, I think, on most people's spectrum would be on the order of, okay, that's not a societal norm. That is something that, okay, this is one I think all of us could agree. No, we don't, we don't agree with that position, and then,
Okay.
but like I said, yeah, but the rest of the ones, I do agree, kind of what you said, is that we would have to you have to take it apart. It's just like, just because that individual thinks it's nuts doesn't necessarily mean that these other members of society would look at that as crazy.
Amen. Yeah. So in the book that I'm writing, I discuss this in detail because I grew up having all of these experiences, and my family told me that I was mentally ill from the time I was a toddler.
Nice.
Until I was an adult. And it got to the point where I quit talking to anyone about the things I was seeing and experiencing because I was told that I either had a really active imagination or that I was very ill, and that if I didn't stop talking about these things, I was running the risk of embarrassing the family, being locked up in a mental asylum, and being fed pharmaceutical drugs for however long. So in this book, I talk about my experience, and I stick up for people who may classically be deemed as being mentally ill, because I don't think that a lot of them, to be honest, in some areas are mentally ill. I genuinely think, for example, that there are some people who are diagnosed as being schizophrenic or schizoaffective who actually are suffering from an extremely low set of auric boundaries, as well as tons of unresolved trauma, and that manifests as them having issues that attract paranormal non-human people who feed off of those things energetically. So they themselves are not mentally ill. They have conditions that cause them to have a traumatic experience of the world, and then there are non-human people that take advantage of that. So if you're not aware, I worked in an, well, you could say it was a pretty elite trauma healing program. I was going to get my PhD in this type of extreme trauma care. And I wound up quitting 2 years in because I was told, quite frankly, most of these people never heal. So the Weird Walk Home is kind of my answer to this conundrum. I'm trying to bring everything together for people and provide them a different way forward where everything is integrated. Mental health, non-human encounters, physical health, trauma healing, the societal ills. I'm trying to bring it all together for everyone so that we can change the way everything is viewed to bring more objectivity into it.
I can't tell you how good this is that we followed up last week with this, like this topic, because that was one of the things, we have mentioned afterwards, like we need to discuss this, because I just think like a follow-up, like to your question, because that's one of those, as you were saying that, I think too, it's like, I would probably really design, like, if I had to, if somebody just point like, what do you feel is crazy? I would say my first criteria would be, are you intending harm to yourself or harm to others? That would be one of those where, that would go instantly in the category, this person needs help. This person needs to be, like I said, you go there, and then you go to the people where you're going around saying, I see lizard people everywhere. Everybody, like they live, like you see, you're wearing these glasses and you're seeing the aliens and everything, and you're going to walk into the bank with a shotgun saying, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. Okay, this person, you're closer to that spectrum of the first person. But just because you're telling the stories doesn't mean this person needs to be institutionalized. That doesn't, I think that's where it'd be. I would say it probably, to me, it'd be on there'd be like a spectrum to me, where it's kind of like the things I don't agree with that. If you have somebody that says like, the I see dead, the I see dead people, the meeting, people where they see these other things. I think as a society, we're so used to, if you don't follow this cookie cutter thing, you're crazy, you're not part of society. I think that's a problem. We need to get away from that, because as adults, we squash kids so much. I mean, I feel bad. There's times like my son said some stuff and I wish I'd encouraged it instead of telling him there's nothing there, stop it. Because he would describe, like, I see the shadow, like when we'd be out camping, and I'd be like, Chase, there's nothing there. Knock it off. Go to sleep. It just, where I should have been more, I should have been like, okay, describe what you see. I should have been doing that.
Well, if I may, did you know that children actually don't develop the thicker lens on the eyes like adults have? It allows them to see into more light spectrums than typical adults do. I believe your son.
Yeah, as I said, I think because he's seen it a couple times, and then I actually made a talisman for him, and I put it in his room, and he hasn't seen it since. And so I just, it's one of those. I don't even know how I created it. I just found a rock in the ocean that had a natural hole put through it. I wire wrapped it and I hung it in his room, and it's been done. Now I said, and then when doing the show and stuff, people were like, "Oh yeah, no, that's exactly what." I'm like, I just did it naturally. I was just like, I just told Chase, here, this will keep it away. Don't know why. I just did it.
So here's my reading on that. The fact that you did it out of love, right?
Mhm.
Okay. You did it out of love, and you encouraged him. You planted the idea. That in itself, to me, is a type of magic. And children are especially susceptible to that. And it can be especially effective for them, in my experience. So I think that that's a fantastic idea. And I applaud you for that. That also could help him raise his own personal vibration so that he is less physically susceptible to negative interactions like that. As far as the mental illness discussion, I personally do not call people nuts or crazy. I specifically refuse to use those words
Mhm.
because I really think that a lot of this is just misunderstood trauma. This is my experience anyways. And so when I was working as a paranormal investigator and a paranormal counselor, I took a more existential approach. And I've even worked with people who were deemed to have antisocial personality disorder. They were deemed to also have like borderline and narcissistic personality disorder, and sometimes even schizoaffective and schizophrenia. What I found is that in most of those cases, they were misdiagnosed, and it was more about the trauma that they had suffered as children. And so getting them into the proper type of therapy and helping them learn new life formulas could actually reduce the diagnosis. But the thing is, you've got to have more open-mindedness to be able to work with these kinds of people and not judge them, because that puts up their defense mechanisms if words, like crazy and nuts are being used. If that makes sense. I don't want to lecture. That's just.
Oh, no, that actually does. And
It's
that's
interesting.
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I think what Tillie is saying is very interesting, and her belief that people can't overcome the trauma, maybe some of what they are saying that they are seeing does tie in with what Jackie and Bill Kuselis have discussed on this show as well, with their research into post-traumatic growth.
Yeah. It's pretty serious, yes. Every single negative paranormal case that I have ever worked or been assigned to has had an element of extreme trauma, familial abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism, the house being kept in a filthy way, and then vicious animals being kept as well, dogs specifically. So there's a lot to it, but trauma and chaos or violence have always been at the heart of it. And in the work that I did previously, getting these people, these so-called crazy, unhealable people, into the proper type of therapy. Usually, it's an empathy-based therapy that these people need, making sure that they understand how to not be a victim anymore, and then making sure that they have the drive to follow through on the treatment. Those are the three magic keys that I've found. Unfortunately, though, and maybe you'd consider this crazy, Craig, which I don't know, I might actually kind of agree with you on this. There's a large portion of the population that I've discovered that they don't actually want to get better. They don't want to take responsibility. They want to continue to be toxic and abusive and to get the benefits of being a toxic victim. And
No,
so for me,
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know personally
yeah,
of a couple of instances where there's somebody that definitely needs to be on medication. Family agree. Everybody's, when they're on medication, they're a
right,
completely different person. They're actually,
right,
you enjoy being around them. They're a great person. When they go off the medication, boom, it's just like it's Jekyll and Hyde. I mean,
Yeah.
this person, you want nothing to, it's the minute they're out of the door, you're like, everybody can breathe. But when they're in the room, it's like the hurricane storm cloud just comes rolling in. But as soon as they take the medication, they're fine. And I said, but it's one of those things.
Yeah.
It just, as society, we look at these things, they need help. But I'm more on the libertarian side. I'm not for forcible. I mean, and this is one of those things where these people need help, but how do you, as somebody that believes in your inalienable, God-given rights, how do you, forcibly put something in a treatment where they don't want anything to do with it? They want, but they need that help.
So my answer to that, this is where people tend to get very upset with me. I'd like to say that I say all of this with the best of intentions and the best of love. This is where I believe in spiritual or vibrational segregation, and sometimes even straight up so-called eugenics. So do not reward these people. Do not take care of them. Do not enable them in any way, shape, or form. Give them no kind of benefit whatsoever so that they are able to be truly on their own and hit that rock bottom. Because if it's bad enough, there's a higher chance that person will choose to seek more permanent help. Yeah. And there have been a few clients in my past where this has been the only way. Their family had to stop enabling them. Friends, the girlfriend would break up with them. I would stop helping them. The church would stop helping them. And then they would get into treatment. They would take it a lot more seriously. But if we continue to reward these people, to date them, to marry them, to have children with them, to excuse their behavior, to give them cigarettes and alcohol, to feed them, to let them crash on the couch, this society can't change. These people are not being given a chance to grow up, essentially. That is my opinion and experience.
No, I could definitely see that too. Like I said, 'cause I mean, I could see how some people would just, like I said, flat out just like, oh my God, they'd freak out, in that position. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those, for lack of better things, tough love type thing where you basically, the drug addict, you can't keep them in the house. You can't do these things. Right. The best thing you can do to love this person is to literally cut them off.
Let them go.
Yeah. You got and I mean, the same thing. I know a few people who have done that same thing, just through matters of addiction. Yeah. And it's like I said, it's hard because there's some people just, because you have that duality of it. It's like, you have to separate yourself so that way you're not enabling in any way where making them feel it. But at the same time, you have that compassionate thing. It's how can I just cut off my, my kid, my husband, my wife, how do you do these things when that is actually the thing that is probably, it's the hardest decision, but it's probably, an important thing to do.
Sure. So like for me, I'm very honest with people. I'm diagnosed as being highly neurodivergent. I don't have a lot of ego or emotional content. So for me, what you're saying means nothing personally. I understand the concept that people are attached to other people because of the title that person holds in their life. Like, I can't do it because it's my mom or it's my brother, it's my husband or my wife. But to me, it makes no sense. So when I would work with people, I would try to say, okay, this is the role that the person in your life has. I accept your feelings. I can somewhat empathize. Here's how you're helping to kill this person. So which do you think is more important? That you indulge the feelings that you have, or that you set a healthy boundary? And that usually would help to ease the guilt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's a different, one, it's like we are going to come full circle. We'll tie this into the Mandela Effect here, people.
We will, yeah.
Yeah. This is, like I said, this is an important thing because this kind of gets into the root of a little bit where you've got some people where it's, you can clearly see it's the headspace. They're just, you have the ones that they do these things just for the gratification of they got the online clicks. They've created the videos that show this stuff. It's
Yeah.
one of those things. Then you have the other people that are actually interested in it from the scientific, logical side, where if you can't base it upon these things, yeah. And that's I put myself, like, I say I'm a healthy dose between Scully and Mulder. It's like I want to believe, but at the same time, it's like for me, I can't shut off that scientific side. It's one of those things I can't. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the CE5 type thing. It's just I'm like, the side of my brain that I can't shut off is the one. I can't imagine that there's an alien race just floating up and out in space right now, waiting for me to have a kumbaya circle and call them in, and then they float in and say hi. I can't, that part of me, but at the same time, I can't say that the people that haven't experienced it are lying or they're not telling the truth, because one, I want to be part of this, but it's like I want to experience these things, but at the same time, I'm like, every time I go do one of these things, I never see anything, and I'm just like,
Right.
I always feel like I'm the left out one, where it's just I'm never experiencing things. I want to.
I hear ya. Well, here's the thing that I've discovered. Non-human people, in my understanding and experiences, they work on explicit types of invitations. And the fact that you are hesitant to the idea is a barrier for them. So maybe if you really want to have an experience like that, maybe that's something that you could work on. Maybe learning how to shelf your doubt a little bit, excuse me, and be more open-minded, or explicitly invite contact. Just please be very, very careful about what types of non-human people that you're inviting. So there's that whole genie 3 wishes thing. A lot of the time, non-human people, as I understand and have experienced it, they are extremely literal. And so if you are not clear about what it is that you want and or need, a lot of the time they'll just give you whatever it is that would amuse them or benefit them best, if they're mischievous or malevolent towards human beings. So I would just advise that. That's my understanding anyways.
No, it's like a promise where we get back to the thing, and that's kind of like through the Mandela Effect, where it's one of those, I suspended disbelief a little bit, because like I said, I want to know more about this one, because even like Katie Turner, she put up a question. It's like, do you think this, let me see if I get it. I'll get it real quick, so I don't want to mess up.
I like that, Katie. I like that attitude a lot. Yeah.
Katie provides a lot of good commentary each week.
Yeah, there it is. Do you think it's a natural timeline shift, or do you think it could be them playing with something like CERN?
Sure.
Where they've actually opened up something.
Right. For myself, again, this is just my experience, just my understanding. I think that as the eras go on, in certain timelines of that era, I think that there are split off groups of timelines that then split off even further into specific timelines. And I think that this is just a function of ascension, essentially. And from the information that I seem to have gotten, starting around 2016, it became even more high vibration in certain timelines of the era. And so I noticed an uptick in Mandela activity, non-human activity, UFOs for myself and whatnot. So this is just my understanding. All the information that I'm giving you right now, I've either experienced it directly myself, or I seem to have had experiences with non-human people who have explained to me how it works. But again, please use your own discernment. To everyone watching, I could be crazy. I could be misinformed. I fully admit that. I don't have all of the answers. So I did. I'm using it. I use it a lot more harshly when I apply it to myself, because I know that people will grasp the gravity of what I'm trying to get across. And I never want anyone just to completely take me for my word, because I am fallible. I think that anyone who is here in the 3D plane is fallible, and we don't have all of the information. So try as I might to be accurate and honest, I could be wrong, especially if we are switching timelines. And I do think, by the way, in some timelines, CERN did activate the switching and changing of timelines. I think that that's a completely different world, but I believe in multiple world theory. So I think that they're both accurate depending upon the timeline and the version of the Earth.
Well,
What do you
I
think?
agree. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you right there too, because what you just said is the key. I mean, most people, when we've hit through, whether we go through with the C19 era, it's just where everybody's talking. You have this thing where people have used the term settled science, and that is an incredibly ignorant
Yes.
statement. And what you just said is the thing. If you are not constantly, because I use the term thing, a wise man knows that they have more to learn.
Amen.
Only a fool believes that they have nothing to learn. And that's one of those things where what you just said is exactly it. Where if you go into it saying, I am completely correct, there's nothing that I can ever learn from this thing, my position is correct,
Right.
you're gonna that's never gonna work. But if you're going into it where I could be wrong, I need to learn more, and I keep studying and I keep doing these things, because you're going to find things have changed. Otherwise, we're still going to believe that the Earth is the center of the universe and that everything circles around us.
Sure.
And
That's how you grow as a host too.
Yes.
knowing that I screw up many times,
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah. And getting back to the mental health discussion with the paranormal too, the only people I have not been able to help have been the ones who insist that they know it all. That's it.
Tillie, we've touched on CERNs, some of the things from your lifetime. If we go back, this might be a little bit more paranormal related, but if we go back to the old timey writers, do they get into this? Are they basically saying the same thing we are, just by using different terms? So has the Mandela effect always been around? Or is it more related to just the invention of the internet, and you did mention all this could be a psyop as well.
Only parts of it. Only very specific instances.
Okay.
Could you give me an example, please, of the author or
I think one of the best examples of an older author that wrote about paranormal activity, mental health, was Nathaniel Hawthorne, and is more specifically, the House of Seven Gables. I was just wondering, have these ideas existed, going back to 1851, or are they, more of a recent phenomenon?
Sure. I've not read that book in its entirety, so please take anything that I'm about to say with a massive chunk of salt. I do think that these authors had some truth in what they were thinking and what they were writing and observing. And I do think that in the modern day, we have the equipment and now seemingly at least some scientific grasp on the quantum world to be able to expand on that. So I really do think that there is something to it. But to be honest, I've not read enough of those classic works to give you a comprehensive answer, and I'm sorry to say.
No, well, there's like the ghost parade towards the end. There's a reference to a mirror across from the door of the mansion. It is a haunted house book. It's just something Dickens wrote about interdimensional travel, where Scrooge could see Bob Cratchit's family and Tiny Tim, and but they couldn't see him.
Right.
I just have an interest in like that kind of stuff. I just want to throw the
Okay.
question out.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a great question and a wonderful example. I'm familiar with that one, so I can speak on that one. So my theory about A Christmas Carol has a few different parts. I do think that it could be either that he simply dreamt it all. I do also think that it could be that, he was taken and he was, as maybe you could say, a specter or a ghost. He was there watching it again. Or it could be maybe he was abducted by non-human people who knew that he was influential on the population of the human people, and they were posing and recreating that entire situation, all of the scenes, so that they could influence him. I think it could have gone any which way. And I've still encountered in the modern day situations where I'm getting reports that people say, hey, I had this experience. It completely changed my life. It also included memories from the past, and it helped me work through internal blocks that I was feeling. And then there are some people who say, I've had this type of experience and it was traumatizing for me. But what is it exactly? I have no idea. I think that it would change depending upon the timeline. And so I think that there is an objective truth per timeline that we're not going to actually know about until we go back home, which is beyond the quantum. That's after we die. That's after we stop living out this incarnation. There are still, in my experience and understanding, people who pass away, but they're still hanging around as, you could say, a ghost, because they have that unfinished business, or because they are wanting to help forward a timeline for someone else, and that hole in the story needs to be filled. So in my understanding, we get the answers when we go way back home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I was gonna say, in a way, doesn't that feel kind of tie into like what Katie says, where it's like where we can change our timelines?
I agree with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I teach a lot of existential therapy, which is no labels, like crazy or nuts or healthy or unhealthy, those extremes. What I teach people is, okay, this is exactly where we're at right now. These are the qualities of the moment. This is what we would like to change in order for you to live a life or a lifetime that better suits your goals and your personalities. This is how we can proceed. And I think that approaching it this way, that is how you start to switch the timelines. From there, if someone is able to make those massive changes, we can start to talk about actual magic. I call this, well, I see three different types of magic. There's magic with a C at the end. That's, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And then there's magic with a CK at the end. That is like the ritual worship magic. We're all familiar with that, Wicca and whatnot. But then the third type of magic that I believe in is quantum magic. That's magic that ends with a Q. This is my own creation. This doesn't exist anywhere else as far as I know. But I have these three different classes to help people understand where I'm coming from. I do absolutely believe that we can consciously switch our timelines by enacting certain quantum type rituals. And that can be as simple as keeping a spotless house and using Florida water to raise the vibration of objects around us, to doing the 2-cup method, which is a type of, you could say, dimension jumping, allegedly, or mental dimensional transfer. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
What do you
no,
guys
I
think?
agree. And it's one of those things too. It's the, because like the Mandela effect, I've often wondered, like, if you actually, because I'll suspend belief, like, one of those things, like, we'll just go with it's completely real, everything is happening, like these things. Is there an intent behind it, or is this just like just like an unintentional, like, bleed over? Like, something happened, this is an occurrence. We've had it to where these two basically simultaneous, can be in the era of the multiverse. This could be multiple timelines colliding and stuff at the same time. But it's just is this something that was done intentionally, like a la Stranger Things type of show, where this was like an intentional thing, kind of got out of hand, or is this something like just like the fabric kind of tore? There's a bleed over, and some people see it, and other people are just like, I'm not seeing this, because we have
Right.
some that just, they're like, no, I don't understand any, the Mandela effect just doesn't exist to them. But other
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God, I see it everywhere.
Yeah, I think that it's both, to be honest. And I think that at a soul level, we each come here and agree to whatever timelines we're experiencing. That's my theory. But as far as bleeding over, I do think that that's just a natural part of quantum flow for people, for anyone in existence, really. I just think that human people have much less access to it because of everyone. As I understand it, human people are physically and vibrationally the very densest. The brains and the eyes for human people act as a thick reality filter. So this is why we have reports of non-human people being able to experience time in any way, shape, or form, past, present, future, anything. They just have access to all of it. There's a lot more free will too that can come with that. But for human people, it's experienced very differently. And so I think that the key to most magic, again with a Q, is having that open mind and being objective, that you might not be seeing these Mandela effects, but this other person really might actually be objectively experiencing these for themselves. And then having the empathy and the humility to work with these people, because you never know where you could be wrong, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's just kind of follow up, because some people have been talking, on the other side, like non-human type thing. Do you think this is some of that, like possibly some of this is effect that's going on? Because we've all had, for anybody that's a pet owner, you've all of a sudden had your dog or your cat just suddenly like look at a wall and just like, stare. And so is it something that, I'm not going to say like a ghost just walked into the room or something is, but is it one of those things like, the veils have crossed or something like that, and they're seeing something that we can't see? Because I won't lie. Our dog, Finn, all of a sudden he'll just be like, I'm like, knock it off. There's nothing at the wall. Stop it. And he's just sitting here just like, ooh. I'm like, it's a wall. I go literally hold him up. Nothing here. What? There's nothing here. And then set him back down. It's just, and it's one of those things like, what do you do? It's like, show me. And he's just kind of like, he'll look, and then all of a sudden it's just like derp, and then he's off to do his other thing. I'm like, I have no idea what happened. I'm like,
yeah. Well, I've seen it with my eyes a lot of the times. Pets, dogs and cats specifically, will indeed seem to be reacting to non-human presence in the room, especially because it is exotic. And I've seen it, and it's been caught on camera by my former team. I've watched non-human face, like a non-human face, come out of the wall. They're peeking in to this reality, and they're using the wall essentially as a kind of vector or mid-ground, and the dog will start to freak out. But then too, every non-human person I've ever met hates dogs. And so if someone has a dog, unless that dog is sentient, which is in my experience extremely rare, dogs are more prone to experiencing especially negative treatment by non-human people. Even so,
Well, well, no, just like what you're saying, just kind of, tell me if I'm off base. I think that's probably why they have that reaction, like where the hair stands up, they growl.
that's exactly
Because,
it.
yeah, because you rarely see a dog just suddenly up and the tail's like, and they're all happy, and they're running to it. They're just like instantly just like locked. I mean, there's times like I look at him, I'm like, dude, are you high? What are you doing? It's like, he just stare. I'm like, yeah, hello, wake up.
Right.
And it's just, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, no offense to you. I understand that you like dogs, and I'm cool with that. I personally don't like dogs at all. Most of them I absolutely hate, and they don't like me. And then the non-human people that I've met also, all of them have hated dogs. The reason, so this is my personal reason. They carry tons of zoonotic diseases. Their excretions kill grass. They dig up the flowers. They destroy the house a lot of the time.
It's true. It's not
Yes,
telling
and
lies.
then they
I mean,
attack children. Yeah.
I mean, they chew on the furniture, they pee on the carpet. I mean, I said, but there's
Very
something
low
about
vibe.
coming home and doesn't matter how bad your day is, that you're the most important thing that's ever happened in their world. And they're all excited, and I said, that's the part that makes it worth it when you come in and that's all they want to do is, love on you. I'm like, that's the part I love about dogs. And they're just like curl up on you and it's like, that's it. You got your companion.
Right, and I'm cool with that for you. It's not worth it emotionally for me to deal with the low vibe that comes with dogs. And granted, I actually have met a few dogs that I fully believe were sentient people. And so those are my exceptions. But in general, I absolutely hate dogs because they are so terribly low vibe. They're chaotic. And a lot of non-human people have told me we see dogs in general as being the concentrated form of the worst traits of base human nature. And so they say that they're attracted to people that have dogs because of the filth and the risk and the chaos and the violence associated with them. It puts off a lot of food for them, but they say that morally, they actually hate dogs. I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's so it's like, you're more along the lines of like, it's like, if like for pet, it'd be more along towards like a cat or something else, like reptiles or something like that.
And that's why a lot of paranormal experiencers, they will rarely report that their cat has gotten hurt, but we hear about dogs being attacked all the time by shadow people and by aliens, being vaporized on like Skinwalker Ranch, being tormented in the woods or killed in the woods. It's because dogs are seen as being highly aggressive, highly chaotic, destructive to the natural environment, and extremely invasive. They jump up on people uninvited. There's the licking with all the nasty diseases in the saliva, and then they will tear up the forests as well. And so they're seen as an enemy by most non-human people, in my understanding and experience. And I agree with them. But that's just me. Everyone, please make your own deductions.
Oh yeah, no, it is. No, well, it's that inevitable thing. Anybody that says I don't like dogs, you have the dog people like, oh my god, and I hate cats. Oh my god, you can't win. You can't win. Yeah, no, it's one of those. Yeah, because it's what because I've always through life I've always been one of those things. It's like I've said, you take your dog and you watch what your dog does to somebody, and you can judge. You can judge somebody's character instantly by the way they either treat animals, or the way the animals treat them, and so it's one of those. So if a person comes in and they just absolutely hate animals, that there's a cold side. And they're not, so I look at that. But if they come in, whether it's a cat, whether it's something like, and they have that interaction where they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, there's something there. They don't have to love them. They don't have to sit here and lay on the ground, let them roll around. It's just one of those things. You just watch how somebody interacts with an animal, and I've always just used that as a gauge. It's like if I can see
Okay.
if they have that compassion type thing, that I know there's something there. If it's something like they walk by and they see a bird on the ground, their first instinct is to kick it. See how far they can.
I agree.
Yeah. Then there's something not connecting because it's just an animal is almost just like I think somebody just said, children and animals. King said it. It's just it's like little kids and animals. It's like how you treat them is kind of like judgment of character to me. It's like I watch this thing. It's
Gotcha.
you're mean.
So for me, like dogs hate me. Almost all dogs have absolutely hated me, and I'm deathly afraid of them. And so if you were to see me interact with dogs, I withdraw. I am fearful, and if they try to jump on me or whatever, I might freak out and kick them. Would you judge me as being a bad person?
No, because I think part of the thing what the dogs are really reacting to is they sense that there's something wrong. It's because especially like the fear, because that's one of those things like I've always told people. It's just like when you come over with a dog, worst thing you can do is run.
I agree.
Then, yeah, because then dog is like it's the game's on, and then they freak out. In the same way, they recognize the fear, and a lot of especially dogs will take that as a threat because they see like this person, there's something wrong, and so they get their defense up. Because I tell a lot of people, it's just like just even the dog, if the dog's saying, just like treat them with don't reach up, look them in the eyes, because if they take that as a great just a lot of them. It's just if you do it, but if you're instantly afraid, dogs will know. I mean, they.
I've had people tell me that because I'm afraid of dogs, and because dogs react to my fear, that I'm a horrible person.
Oh no,
and because I don't like dogs,
there's some people just you never know. I always take it because it could have been trauma. It's like you could have been attacked when you were when you were young, and now you're just absolutely petrified of a dog. It's just I go you can't. Yep. You can't judge somebody just because it's just if their first instinct is come in and kick it, then you're like, there's something up here. I'm like,
I agree. I agree.
Right,
I don't want to cause anyone or anything any kind of harm unless I'm cornered. If I'm cornered, all bets are off. But I've had awful experiences with dogs my entire life.
Yeah,
and so I just can't do it. I can't even like there have been a few dogs that I really did think that they were sentient beings, and so I was fine with them. I mean, I have to be very careful about germs for my health, but outside of that, I think that those dogs were lovely beings, and I enjoyed their company. There were 3 in my whole lifetime, but they still count. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people they think that I'm just a horrible person because I don't like.
No, it's like you said. It's not everything. Because I know same people that absolutely hate cats. They want nothing to do with a cat. It's just, and it's usually I have the experience where I'll, they're part demon because it's like you gotta love an animal. It's kind of cats. I think they are really related to Chihuahuas. They love to be touched, and as soon as you withdraw your hand, it's like attack is on. You're just like, what is wrong with you? You're part hellspawn. It's like knock. It's just, I don't know what it's just. You gotta love something that's purr, and all of a sudden all things, and it's biting on you. It's like, what happened? What literally happened here? I was scratching. What changed? Yeah. It's the Mandela Effect. What happened to you? You were a good cat just a little bit ago, and now you're a hellspawn. It's like, what happened? Yeah, it's so. Before we get the cat and the dog people all riled up here, we'll get back to the Mandela.
I agree, and I'm so sorry if anyone has been upset by what I said.
That's the thing about the show. We're all over the place. So, Mark, did you have any other any questions? I want to let you don't have to sit in abject silence.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about this upcoming collaboration with Tim, and we also need to get into Tillie's work with Joshua Cutchin, who has also been a guest.
Mm-hmm.
I think both have been terrific guests.
Now, was Josh the one that was driving around during the interview?
No.
There's one we had that was driving around. I can't remember.
Matt Adams.
Oh, it was Matt Adams. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So no,
Jo-
Joshua's good. Yeah, that was a good show.
Joshua has a fantastic book on uh the folklore stories that may indicate that um, ab- abductions have gone on for a very long time, and I think that uh, his documentation uh, provides a really good. It makes a strong point that they have been happening. Oh, and I forget that book. I'll have to look it up. But Tilly, do you want to tell us a little bit about your work with those two uh, ancient aliens commentators?
As you wish, darling. Well, Tim and I met. Tim and I met this past year because I heard him on Coast to Coast talking about his new book with Zontar Press at the time, Mimics, The Others Among Us.
Hmm.
And with how open-minded and fair he was by my standards, I really just felt very drawn to work with him and encourage him and reward him as much as possible, maybe help him put some other pieces together. Yeah, I mean, he spent several months just talking with me and vetting me after I sent him the first email. He had responded actually really quickly within a few days, and we just started working together. He then invited me to join the writing team. I did, and now we have written a book together, and it's going to be out here in 2024, hopefully by August. Hopefully, I fingers crossed. I don't have an exact date yet, but it deals with the Mandela effect and a lot of these connected topics. Outside of that, I do occasionally appear on roundtable discussions with Tim now, and he appears on my show. And in fact, we're due to have a show coming up here within the next month or two. He's just been really busy getting everything together with this book. But yeah, there's already one interview up with him on the Weird Walk Home channel. What else? Yeah, he also is the co-creator of The Weird Walk Home. I could not have done it without him, and I would not have done it without him. I have a lot of love and deep respect for Tim Swartz, and it is a true honor, in my opinion, to work with him. He is a good friend of mine now and a great colleague. So that's the story with him. Joshua Cutchin, he and I have somewhat recently connected, although I've been a fan of his now for several years, and he's been on my show once. We also have an agreement now that we're going to be writing a book together in the somewhat near future, if not actually a few books. And
Nice.
oh my gosh, he is going to be back on The Weird Walk Home for an interview with me on Valentine's Day. I have a really interesting plan for that interview that I think you gentlemen and the rest of the audience, I think, would really enjoy.
Well, yeah, people can check it out because, like I said, we are going to be on hiatus on the Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
So.
Joshua's book title that I needed a prompt for is entitled "Thieves in the Night."
Correct.
A brief history of supernatural child abductions. It's actually a fascinating book. I'd highly recommend it. I
Yes.
really enjoyed doing that show with Joshua.
Yes.
I've got that book around here somewhere. I'm trying to find it.
I think he was.
Yeah,
I think
got
he
it
was
somewhere.
a weirdo.
Probably not gonna be able to find it. Yeah.
But yeah, I really love working with Joshua as well, and I'm excited to dig in deeper to these topics with him via the next show. And hopefully soon a book. He's going to be a recurring guest over on the Weird Walk Home, and who knows, there might be other opportunities in the future for he and I together. In the meantime, though, I highly recommend all of his books, and one of the first questions that I asked him was, how did you put all of this together? Because for years now, I have been watching him and just listening to the things that he's saying, and he has written about so many different things that I've experienced personally or have been told personally by non-human people, but he has just pieced this all together with his brain, and I find that so much more impressive than my journey, which has just been getting the answers from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Really cool guy, I think.
Yeah, that's what. So, do you have a date per chance of like when the book's coming out, or is that just tentatively just the month of August sometime, right?
By August, hopefully. I don't
Okay.
have
Exactly.
any other information than that, because I don't handle all of like the printing, the publishing, all of that stuff. Tim does all of that. Yeah.
Do you have a book title yet, or is that still in the works?
That is up to Tim, and he's keeping a lot of things just completely
Close.
under wraps.
Yep.
Because he's still working out the final details. But he's hard at work. Hopefully soon I'll have more information that I can share publicly.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, hopefully.
So right now the chat apparently is a dog community. So we got I put up a poll too. I put up a poll too. It's like, are you a cat or dog person? Right now we got 7 for dogs and 0 for cats. So yeah, man. So I was, I thought Katie, I'm not sure if Katie, was like, like cats or not. It's like, so I was waiting to see if there. So right now it's definitely on the side of the canine. Yeah, but it's
Katie. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Your contributions have been wonderful, I think, and I greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been nice having, since we've had her on a couple times, and the insights that she brings in the is really nice, and we appreciate. One is like definitely all the comments. It's like people keep encouraging, keep throwing them out there. It's great. For me, when it comes down to the Mandela effect, as this stuff is, it's the craziest thing for me is just how wide variety it is, because it doesn't seem to stick to one sector. I mean, it's everybody from breakfast cereals to fast food restaurants to to the board game characters, to even when it comes down to some, when you actually get into some
Jiffy peanut butter.
Yeah, there's like where people, there's like, I know it as Jiffy, and it's never been Jiffy. It's always been Jif.
Right.
And it's one of those, and that's kind of one of those things is where it was at the power of suggestion, where a lot of, just stuff, just gets bled over. Because I showed the one. I don't know why I remember the wicker basket, the cornucopia, back this up. I don't know why I do, but it's like the other ones, I don't remember. Like, you see a lot of things. I don't have any memory of these ones where, that's off. I mean, I look at them, I'm like, I don't remember the Monopoly guy having the monocle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those ones. It's one of those. It's just kind of weird where, so I've always just joked around. So was I one of the ones from the other timeline, that switched over? My alter ego is over there like, holy cow, I don't recognize any of this stuff. It's a complete opposite. Yeah.
It could be. So when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was at my grandma's house with my mom, and my mom had me up in her arms, and I was at eye line height with my grandma's mantle. My grandma was obsessed with decorating for the holidays, and a big centerpiece in her house was this mantle with the working traditional fireplace. She had this really nice mantle clock on the mantle, and I was looking right at it because my mom was talking to my grandma, and I was looking at it, fascinated with clocks. I've always been fascinated with clocks. Looking at it, I was not understanding what the Roman numerals were, but I was like trying to memorize them. I looked away for a second, I looked back, and the numerals had changed. And it freaked me out. And I started making a fuss, like jumping and pulling my mom's sleeves and stuff, trying to tell her what I had just seen. And she just told me that I was imagining things. But now that I'm all grown up and whatnot, I found other people who swear that Roman numerals have changed on their own clocks and whatnot, and their own watches. So I really do think there is something very much to the Mandela effect, especially when it comes to situations like this. I know what I saw. It made such an impact on me that here I am talking about it decades later.
Yeah, it is what it is. When it gets to the things, it's like it's just like with anything. It's like you can't, when somebody has an experience, you can't discount, because you're like, one, you weren't there, you went, all these things. It's just one of those where it becomes like I see it constantly. Like it's doing it right now as I'm like, all right, now the scientific side of me is I expect you to see the digital, all the digital, equipment up there watching, trying to capture the moment that these things change. That way people can experience it at the same time. That's the part I expect, is like, if this is a constant thing, is I expect that scientific side to kick in. Like I'm going to try to prove this aspect, but it's one of those, because you'll have people that tell these stories, and I'm like, it's really, it's a lot of fun listening to the stories. Because you hear all these different things. It's like, this happened. I'm like, that had to be a trip, just seeing like a clock face change.
Oh yeah. I have two really interesting pieces of information for you. I think anyways. So firstly, now, do you know Steve Mera?
I don't.
No.
Okay, you may want to watch his work on YouTube, because he gets into the scientific portions of the paranormal. He talks about how, for example, non-human entities can manipulate a person's ear canal and the pieces in the person's ear to make them hear certain things, but that objectively, recorded on their equipment, there is no such voice or no such sound. And this gets into what I call, I call it my bubble theory. I believe that each person here incarnate, we are living in our own subjective and simultaneously objective realities. And then when we are interacting with other people, we are bumping into their bubbles, and we're creating a brand new, larger bubble with subjective and objective elements to it. And I think that it always differs per timeline and per person. So I think that this is why there are elements that two people can agree on at the same time about the same thing, but then the other person at some point later down the line, they're like, no, the sweater was purple. And you're like, no, it wasn't, it was green. So it's a constantly evolving and changing thing, as I understand it.
So it's almost like the multiverse.
Yes, very much so. So part of why I called the channel The Weird Walk Home is related to the bubble theory that I discuss in great detail in the book coming out. I believe that we're all just blowing bubbles and walking each other home, and that we're having these really cool and novel experiences on the way. That's my theory. The second part, so I saw my cat climb out of years dried, feet-thick pavement as though it was Jell-O, right before my eyes in the middle of the day. There's no way that I mistook it. I saw it head on, and I believe that the universe has a liquid or plasma quantum element to it, and that this is how these changes are taking place. And I think that it is an incredibly rare gift to be able to see this portion of the metamechanics, as I call them. But I do think that there are other people out there who have similar experiences, and I think that this is how, in some timelines, the Mandela effect manifests itself. Does that make sense? Like physically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because it was stuff, there's always been there's always been that, those hypotheses about the fact that we all kind of have our own little, it's just pretty much like you said, it's almost like a bubble where there's all these things, and then as we interact with people, it's kind of like it keeps branching off. Like it's
Yes.
almost like the butterfly effect, where the simplest little change could have. If I decided to go left instead of right, I never would have met my wife.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, and it's kind of literally it's that same thing. It's like if I had chosen a different class at a different time in college, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in right now. It's completely, some people call it fate, like you were destined to this thing. Other ones, it's like the chaos theory, from anybody that's Jurassic Park, put the drop of water on there, the same drop of water, it goes a different path, it just, where it's not predetermined, it's just minuscule changes divert the path, and so it's one of those things. If you bump into the right bubble, things work out. If you bump into the wrong one, things are drastically different. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely get behind that hypothesis that that's one of those things too. Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Yep. So that's my base theory anyways. And I always advocate going with the flow. So radically accepting whatever is going on in any given moment and in any given situation, and then just finding ways to go with that flow to make it work for you. Yeah. I think that's about it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No, that's right. That's right. And yeah, because M.A. Allen just put up there a question again. He said, Jesus, take the wheel. So I just put a poll up there. Has Jesus ever taken your wheel, and did he give it back? So that's the poll up there right now for people. Yeah. So yeah, it's no, it's one of the, so definitely check out, The Weird Walk Home, for people. I want people to do that, and just keep an eye out for the book that you're working on there with Tim Schwartz. Yes. That's going to be, because we've had him on a couple times, and we one of the ones we talked about was Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and that was a cool show.
That's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things. Do people, there's going to be the people. You have to take the thing. It's here's this family story. Do you actually believe that there was a physical mongoose that could utter words and stuff? I said, maybe not. Maybe it was tainted grain, kind of like how, it's one of those things, the mold in the grain causes people to hallucinate and stuff. Right. Could it be something like that? But at the same time, you have, it basically, it has it has everything. It has the paranormal community mixed in. It's just, I said, it's a really fascinating story. And that's one of those things that's really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys, what you guys come up with in the book. So definitely, as it comes out, let us know, because
yeah,
we plan on having maybe get you and Tim on at the same time.
I would absolutely love that. Hex yeah. By the way, my husband and I were in the process of moving across the state, and I don't have a lot of content coming out on the channel until we get moved and settled. So if you'd go, you'd notice that I put up a new episode every Monday at right around 8:00 p.m. EST, and there was no episode this week. I put up a small post just saying, hey, we're moving and all of that. And so it's on hold until probably beginning to mid-April, unfortunately. But the good news about that is that I have requests / invitations to go to about 5 different states to start doing shows in person with people. So the plan is that I'm going to start going to different states and holding in-person real-time walks with my guests. And that's one benefit of us moving and downsizing. That's pretty much the plan. So
oh yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so just keep that thing. Like I said, I'll just have send people. Like I said, check that out. It was one of those things. The Weird Walk Home. Follow that, and the same thing. Check you out on Facebook, and just keep an eye out. Like I said, we'll keep up to date as things are coming on, especially with you and Tim. As that's coming out there. So
I'm glad Tillie's going to be out and about more too.
So appreciate you, Mark. Appreciate you getting us in touch. Setting that up. As I said, it's been great having him on there. And I'm going to try to not be so lazy, and I'm going to try to figure out this beard thing. like how to send out the little beard things to guests. Get that part. So for the people that gave stars and everything, you're going to help make that these type of things possible. So it makes it work. So for everybody that gave us stars, appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh, speaking of physical items, Mark, I don't know if you knew this, but we're also launching a merchandise shop come this spring sometime. So I hand make organic small batch dessert teas and gourmet sugars, and I've been working closely with a professional artist to design some merchandise and seasonal gift boxes. So that might be something else to keep an eye out, and then I'll see if I can sell the books there too. So yeah.
Well,
There you go.
That's definitely the thing to have those things and hit some of the farmers markets up, because especially if you got those things, the farmers markets, those specialty things definitely go well.
Yeah,
I
read a
would
fascinating.
love to, but I'm definitely allergic to sunlight, so it's rare that I can do any events like that, to be honest with you.
Well, that's where you get like the significant other to go out there. So, hey, it's your turn. Yeah, hey, here's your boxes. Get out there. Saturday, earn your keep. Chop chop.
I'm gonna have to tell him that. I'll tell him that you told me so.
Yeah. That's what
You're
that's what you do.
hardly related with this dude, but you're gonna have to get out there and peddle my wares. I like your attitude, sir.
Yeah, it's like, hey, do you like food? There we go. Let's get chop chop, buddy.
I'll relay that message. Yes.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, everybody, like I said, we're gonna wrap it up here. So I just appreciate everybody checking out the show. Like I said, everybody follow. Like I said, the Weird Walk Home on YouTube. Go and same thing. Barbara DeLong for Nightlight, where you can listen to the man in the bottom square there. You can listen to him. Try to stay on Barbara's good side, not get too crazy. He gets he does a good job. He doesn't get too unruly on the show. Barbara doesn't have anything.
Yeah, it's a couple times people like Charlie Robinson got me a little wound up, but everything's okay.
Yeah, that's you got to have those ones to basically keep Barbara on her toes. For the dump button, whether or not to hit. Yeah, so that's all right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And like I said, I'll give the guest. How should we be sent out? Do you want to do the cows being abducted, or do you want to do or do you want to just do the name promo? Which one do you want to do? It's up to you. It's up to you.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Do you want to abducted cows or the name promo? I'll give you guys I've got 11 different outros.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I like the abducted cow one.
All right, we'll do that one. All right. So thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Like I said, everybody have a good night, and we will see you. Not Valentine's Day. We will see you on the next week after that, because we're gonna take that day off. So all right, everybody, have a great week and a half, and I'll figure out what show I'm gonna replay. So we'll let everybody know as that comes in. All right. Good night.